in college.
So, hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar on It's Only Banter. We have got a lot of people joining today. So welcome everyone. Just so I can make sure that you can hear me and everything is okay. The way we'll be interacting is through chat. So please do open your chat and give me a hello in chat. It is lunchtime, so maybe let me know what have you got around you that's good to eat. Please do make sure that you've got yourselves on mute just for this, just because we've got lots of people on. And also, please do put your cameras on if you feel like it. I appreciate it's Friday. You might have a Friday face. I don't know what a Friday face looks like. It's a little bit like this. There's lots of smoke screen and mirrors going on here. But it's lovely to see people. So please do feel free to share your cameras, whether you're there by yourself or with lots of other people joining. So a few hellos. Hello, Claire Jones with the Christmas tree. Thank you so much. Jane, you've just had a crumpet and a peanut butter. Oh my goodness, my mouth's watering. Um, so hello, cheese on toast. I think I'm going to have that after this. You've just made me. Hello, Sandra. Nothing to eat. You just got hot water and lemon. Oh, Sandra, I'm so sorry. Sore throat. Tracy with chocolate. It must be Friday. Hola, Jackie. Hello, Jackie Smith with a crisps and apple together. Good crunching. Hello from Gibraltar, Patricia there. How's the weather over in lovely Gibraltar? Hope it's a little bit better than here. So hello and welcome. Like I said, this is a session all on It's Only Banter, how we navigate the rules of workplace humour, which is changing dramatically as we go through, the years. And so we'll discuss some of that. It is only a 45-minute session. For those of you who know me, you'll know I am Stephanie Davis. I'm the head of happiness here at Laughology. It's a made-up title. Anyone else on here got a made-up title? There will be some of you, I presume. I am the CEO here at Laughology. What qualifies me to talk about banter? Well, I was a comedian, professional comedian for 10 years. I've studied humour and the psychology of humour at master's level, looking at how it motivates us to behave, how it motivates us to learn, how it sits in the brain. So I'm going to be sharing my thoughts, but please do add your thoughts on here as well. By no means have I got all the answers, and hopefully today we'll explore it a little bit together. Laughology does lots of different things. So we're a culture change organisation primarily, but we use humour as a way to think differently and learn differently. We've got a fabulous team of 16 who go out all around the world and all around the UK looking at how we can help people to think better and think differently with our special ingredient, which is humour. Most of our team have a background in education, psychology, learning and organisational development, as well as that special ingredient of humour. So I will ask you to just pop yourselves on mute if you have. Thanks for saying hello if you haven't already. Patricia's eating a chicken tikka masala at lunchtime. You must be mad. But lovely. I think I might fancy one. It's making me very, very hungry. Yasmin's just got sparkling water around you. Okay, so this session is being recorded, just so you know. So if you are um, on the screen and you've got someone with you that you shouldn't have with you, just maybe turn your screen off. We will share the slides afterwards with some notes as well, and we will make sure that we can answer as many questions as possible as we can on this. So quick question to get us started. I'd love you to pop and chat. What was your nickname at school, if indeed you had one, and was it a nice one? And the reason why I ask this is because nicknames can be good and they can be bad. And sometimes our nicknames from school, we said, oh, it's only a bit of a laugh, it's a bit of fun. But actually, it might have been something that upset us. My nickname personally was Fanny Delight. Now, let me explain that before you get a little bit too excited. So my name is Stephanie, and so that became Fanny as a kid, which was hilarious to us as children. But I didn't mind it because a lot of people shortened my name to Fanny. And then because my last name's Davis, it became Fanny D. And that was fine until Sunny Delight came out. And because Fanny is like Sunny D, it became Fanny Delight, which followed me through school, primary school, absolutely fine. Secondary school, got a little bit lost about what it actually meant. And so it followed me through university. I didn't mind. It was a bit of a laugh, but it's that thing, nicknames can stick with us. So let's go to your nicknames. We will send the recording out, by the way. Snap, because you had skeleton, skinny, trembly legs. Oh, due to be very thin. We've got Lucy, Lucifer. Oh my goodness, I love that. Patricia Mop, because of your big frizzy hair. Love that. We also had Retro, Jennifer, Bridget, Roger Rabbit. Ah, because your surname was Rogers. I love that. Short ass, Wookie. You're not allowed to type yours, Quinn. Very good holding there. Maybe send it to me afterwards. Alan Fleming, Flemmy. No nickname. Heather, Ted, Green Giant. Oh, what's that one? Explain it a little bit more. Katie Wilson, Willie. Love that. Dazzler, Darren. Yeah, and we had a Dazzy in our school. Love these. One of the nicknames that we also we gave to one of the team actually, who was in our kind of uh, uh, team, as in football and netball team, a gang that we were in. It's really funny. So one day we were coming back from school lunch. We were really late, so we were running back to school. And Barry, one of my mates, he ran in dog poo, and as he ran, he flicked it up to the back of his head. So his name, ever since then, was Dog Shit Barry, and we just called him Dog Shit around school, which is terrible when you think about it. But I saw him about 10 years ago, and I recognized him, hadn't seen him for years, and I was like, "Hey, Dog Shit, how are you?" And he actually went, "I'm fine. How are you, Fanny?" And it was this lovely little moment of reunion, which where we called each other our terrible names at schools. But the reason why I talk about that is because when we talk about banter, it can be a lovely thing that is a social bond, like me and Barry, or it can be a negative thing. And do pop in chat for me. How many of you, be really honest, are worried about saying things as we go into this new way of thinking, a new age, where perhaps what we used to say is out of bounds a little bit, and as the world changes, we're not sure quite if it's us getting old or the world is changing. I've definitely felt that. And it's one of those things where I think, am I turning into my mum? Am I turning into my father? Where I'm just saying things that I shouldn't say anymore. So it can mean that we're cautious, perhaps that we don't say things. And actually, laughter is one of those things that is really, really lovely, and is a tool that we should absolutely use, but we need to use it cautiously. So that's what we'll explore today. And a little bit about why it's lovely and why it's good for us. So to start with, what I want to do is just explore why we should care about this subject. And I've done quite a bit of research on this over the years, and especially for this session as well. So these numbers link to why we should care about thinking about humour and laughter being an important part of the workplace, but used cautiously, carefully, and kindly. So 27%, and do pop in chat. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention prizes. That's the only reason surely you come on these sessions. Okay, so we do have prizes, as you well know. So for those of you who join in, and you're already joining in, which is very exciting, but I'll choose 5 people at the very end who have joined in lots, and it's just because I see your names, by the way. There'll be no rhyme or reason, and I'll shout up to 5 people out at the end, and you will win a whole goodie bag with a signed copy of the Laughology book. Woo woo. You'll also have the squidgy stress person. And my favorite part is his little tush. Look at that. Ooh, oh, it's even got a bend in it. We also have the Laughology torch and the Laughology pen. And you can get a curly whirly. And because it's nearly Christmas, we're going to put some special little prizes in there as well, just because it's Christmas. So give me a whoop and a cheer for the things that you want people woohooing already. And even if you don't want them yourself, you can package it all up as a Christmas present for somebody else and pretend that you've been really, really thoughtful when actually you forgot what the Christmas present was meant to be. Uh, Okay, so let's start to people very excited about the curly whirlies and stress people, always useful. So let's talk about these numbers. So 27% of people when interviewed talked about humor as what? This is a positive stat, by the way, just to share that with you. So 27% of people said what? Just in terms of, can you see the slides, everyone, by the way, just so you know? Yeah, you can see the slides. I like nodding. Okay, so 27% of people said what it makes them happy. Brilliant, it breaks the ice. Marcia says, oh yes, sorry, that's that. So 27% people said what about humor being something positive? Just pop that in chat for me. Builds relationships, helps them connect. Love that. Makes them more relaxed. Important for a good working environment. Oh, that's a really good one. Important for Becky. You're nearly there. Makes it easier. It makes the day easier. Is an icebreaker. Brilliant. Okay, so the closest was Becky. So it is 27% of people said they feel more motivated, or the humor makes them more motivating when they're doing work. When they work in an office where positive humor, that's really important part, positive humor can be used. Okay, let's talk about 15% of people what, and this is connected to the 27% of more motivating. And by the way, I will send you where the research is for this, the source it's come from, and how it's been peer reviewed afterwards as well. So don't forget, if you want that information, you can drop us an email afterwards, but we'll also send it out as a pack. So 15% of people said it what when we use humor in our workplaces. This is particularly about workplaces. I love Tracy said take the stress out. Actually, there is some research around that which I haven't included in this. So there's lots of research that says that when we're able to laugh at work, especially with people that we form bonds with, then we are less likely to be stressed. And actually, it's the one thing that makes us stay in that workplace. And that's linked to some of Gallup's research, which is around if we have friends at work who we connect with and laugh with, we're more likely to stay in that workplace, be productive and work hard as well. So we've got lots of lovely things in about happiness here. Feel less anxious, made them feel uncomfortable not knowing if it crosses the line. Oh, I like that one. An H, sorry, didn't know your name. Provides a non-toxic working environment, a happy environment. Feels like you're part of a team. So Sandra, yeah, you're nearly there, bonding. Nazima, thank you very much. So 15% of people said that when they were able to have a laugh at work, they felt more engaged. And let's talk about 18%. Now, this is something to do with output and without giving you big clues, an increase. So if you work in product or retail or something like that, so more productive, increased performance. Jackie's put something about sex hormones. Endorphins are sex and laughing hormones. I think laughing is more acceptable at work. I think laughing is acceptable whilst having sex as well. Depends who you're having it with. Okay, so 18% it says it increases the bottom line. And Laura, you're spot on. Laura Farrell from Savills. So in research, 18%, there was an 18% increase in sales when someone said a humorous comment, like, for example, It might be if you buy today, I will throw in my pet frog and do you a little dance as well. Just even just silly things like that. People talked about that there is an 18% increase in sales. Darren's put sales production. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. And as demanded, actually, a curly whirly there as well. You can't just demand them, Darren. It might be if you join in more. This is why we should care about laughter and humour and that we don't make it extinct. That's really, really important part of this, whilst also being kind with it and making sure that we're conscious about how we're using it in a positive and inclusive way. So if we are talking about laughter and humour and banter, we first want to define what it is. So can anyone pop in chat for me what laughter is, which is quite a big question, really, isn't it? I talked a little bit about it before. And by the way, you will be just to make sure, I said before, you will get the slides from this and the visuals from it, and we'll send out the recording. This is a really short session. We are doing longer workshops on this, of which we'll pop that in chat to let you know about what that workshop would cover, and it can be anything from a 1 hour introductory session right through to a half day, full day on how we can be more inclusive and why banter's an important part, but how we don't cross the line. Okay, laughter. A way of expressing yourself, says Tracy. Physical reaction when you find something funny. I like the way someone's just put it's wonderful. It is, isn't it? I love it when I laugh so much, tears run down my legs. Expression of finding something funny, the outward display of emotion. Laughter is a way, ability to see the joy in situation. Is laughter always about joy? Is it always about feeling upbeat and happy? Is there another way of laughter? It's the best medicine. Laughter increases beautiful neurotransmitters in the brain. There's 4 neurotransmitters that are really wonderful that are increased in the brain and in the body. Can anyone tell me? I need all 4, and you will have an instant win of a goodie bag, by the way. All 4, first one in. Who's going to do it? Dose. Go on, Jackie Smith. What are they all? Go on. I believe in you. Who's got the fastest fingers? Fastest fingers. Endorphins, you've got 1. You've got dopamine. Come on, Jackie. All 4. We've got dopamine, oxytocin. Coral is in there first. So Coral McLaren, sorry, the name went. You got in there first. So Coral, you will get an instant goodie bag. I'm just putting you on my list. So dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. A great way to remember it is a dose of happiness when we laugh. Okay, so laughter is a really important tool. Actually, it was around for many, many years, long before we even had the different sounds of laughter. Hopefully, is that working? We're not. Oh, for some reason, we're not sharing. Okay, that's fine. So laughter has been around for many, many years, long before the different sounds of communication were there. And the reason why it's so important is because it's an emotional tool to let other people know how we feel. That feeling isn't always upbeat and happy. Sometimes it's nerves, sometimes it's embarrassment, sometimes it's shock. Has anyone ever been told something quite shocking and then gone, oh my goodness, why am I laughing at that? I really shouldn't be laughing at that. But the same part of the brain that is responsible for our emotional release and response and reaction is the same part of our brain that's responsible for laughter. And so as a social tool, it helps us feel better, it helps us connect with people, it helps us think better, all those lovely things that you were talking about. Humour is a little bit different. I don't know why that's suddenly going very fast like that, whatever reason, but I'll talk you through it. So humour is a little bit different. So humour is the way we see the world. And because we all see the world differently, and we'll have different upbringing depending on our background, our culture, depending on our belief system, that's why humour can be quite one of those difficult things to navigate. We can laugh at ourselves. Laughter can be just a response to not even humour, but humour itself is the challenging one to navigate, and especially in workplaces. And as someone who's been a comedian, there's lots of kind of things that help us understand context of situation and environment, and when and how we should say stuff. For example, in a comedy club, you are walking into an environment that says comedy. It says comedy above the door. And so part of you releases a little bit of that understanding of there might be some things in here that perhaps aren't my belief system, but I'm also going to suspend reality for a little while. So it gives us a different context and a different environment to be in. And we can also walk out of that environment if we disagree with it. Whereas in workplaces, we have to act a little bit differently. And so context and environment is absolutely everything. And we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. But humour can be a brilliant tool for helping us to understand stuff in a completely different way. And here at Laughology, we use it as a way to help with learning. I always say when the mouth is open with laughter, you can pop in a little bit of information and no one realises that you've done it. And actually, humour can help us to understand situations in a different light and connect with information. An example of this was in lockdown when people were putting memes up. And this was one of my favourite pictures of people talking about working from home experience. That this is what they did to help the kids keep quiet for the day. And whilst we weren't laughing at lockdown itself, and people had very different experiences, and for some people it was quite awful and loved ones were lost. We were laughing at the human behavior of things that happened. And for me personally, some of the memes and some of the funny stuff that came out of lockdown are some of the stuff that helped me personally get through it when I was having quite a difficult time of not being able to see my family, being locked in. So humour can really help us. I love gallows humour, to get past. By the way, you're not allowed to take this example home and show the kids and tell them that this is what's going to happen next week. Um, and so there was lots of things in lockdown. One of my favourite ones was the way we behaved as humans about toilet roll, um, and the funny stories that came out of that. And I don't know about anybody else, but we in our local co-op, we had a password for toilet roll because they were just giving one roll out at a time because people were driving from other villages into our little village to buy toilet rolls because they heard our co-op had toilet rolls to spare. So they knew us as locals and they would give us locals passwords to say that we were allowed to have a toilet roll and we could only buy one at a time. And it's just funny stuff like that when you think back to it, the human behaviors that help us cope with stuff. Do pop in chat some of the funny stuff that happened to you in lockdown or that you've experienced. Exactly, Katie. What were people doing with all the toilet roll? I don't know if they were decorating their houses with it, wrapping themselves up in it, or whether they just had runny noses. But Claire says humour is so easily triggered, so it's a really tough one. You're absolutely right, and this is why we're talking about it today. Jackie's still using her salt. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about what banter is and what banter isn't. So what is banter? Just pop and chat for me. Do you know? Is it something that you don't know? What would you say banter is? Let's just read out some of the funnies from lockdown. So my favourite lockdown meme was the one of the dog hiding on the top of the kitchen cabinets, refusing to be taken out for a walk. Haven't seen that one. Do send it on there, Maria, if you've got it. Taking the mickey, sarcasm and wit, says Tracy. Back and forth, funny comments. I like that. Have we got anything else? So humour, but bit of teasing, being playful in the way that you talk. I like that. Safe, jovial conversations. Really like that answer. Actually, the safe part is the important part in that. So safe, jovial conversations. I might steal that actually, Joanne. Like light-hearted fun. Banter is an agreed safe space for laughter. Laura's using that safe word again. Really important. Banter, funny jokes, a playful, reciprocal exchange of teasing remarks. Oh, Graham, get you. That's very good. Okay, maybe ask the BBC Oh, yes. Maybe we shall be running this workshop with a few people from the BBC. I call banter verbal tickling. And when we talk about verbal tickling, what I mean by that is it's that safe space where we can have a bit of a conversation with someone in a jovial context, but there needs to be lots of things in place before we do that, which we'll talk about why it works and why it doesn't work sometimes. Okay, so banter, conversation that is funny, not serious, joking with another that is friendly. And I'm going to add into that friendly and safe as well. What it does not include is when we are singling somebody out to be laughed at their expense. And there is a real difference. And it's the difference between there being a victim and there not being a victim. And if we take the very recent things that are going on with Greg Wallace at the moment, and when you look at that, there's so many things to unpack around that were important for us to understand. First of all, he's in a position of power. And being in a position of power means that you have to be even more careful with your banter because it might be that I say something as the leader in my team to somebody who is in my team, but who is just a new joined person. Now, I don't have that relationship with them to actually be have that banter with them. I don't know what else is going on for them in their life. There's also the position of power that Greg Wallace had because of his position at the BBC, because also he's in a position of power on the telly. And he actually, whether you thought it or not, might have been a role model for other people. And so he has that position of power as well. And he used and abused that position of power to make himself look good. And that's what we should never do. And he was also asked to stop at certain points, and he didn't stop with it as well. So there's lots of things that have an impact. And if we have to say to somebody, look, I'm only joking, or it's only banter, then it's clearly not, which is what Samantha's just said. I've just picked that up. So we have to be really careful in what is the power dynamic going on? What's our relationship with the person? Who else is in the room? Where's our responsibility? And I just wanted to call out a couple of examples here. So I don't know if anybody saw, it wasn't on this year's, it was on last year's Ant and Dec Saturday night. And there was when they do the Ant and Dec, when they follow the person round for a little while and then they do all the secret filming. I don't know if anybody watches that. And they did one where there was a lady and she was pregnant and it was the first child of this couple and she wanted to play a joke on her partner about the scans that they were having. And they went to this scan, and the scan was that they saw the unborn child, and they would talk to it, and it would wave. And Anton Deck got a lot of backlash on this, and I have to say I agree with it. And it's all dependent on the background of people. Now, as someone who's had several miscarriages, I found it quite upsetting actually that this stuff was being shown. And when I thought about it, as somebody who's a comedian, I really challenged myself to think, am I only upset because of my personal experience, or is there something else going on there? And it's back to that position of power. Now, I love Ant and Dec. I've got loads of respect and loads of time for them, and I actually think they're really funny. But they are in a position of power, and that was also a family show, and on at a time when there's going to be children watching. And taking all that stuff into consideration was what they did right. But there was a statement put out by them to say that they didn't mean to offend anybody and they apologized for it. And actually, in retrospect, I probably think it wasn't right about it. And there's these things that we have to consider is where is it going? How are we influencing other people? And what does that mean in how we're saying it and where we're saying it and what impact it's going to have? And let me tell you that intent does not negate impact. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a little while as well. And then you've got Bake Off, which I absolutely love. Again, there might be Bake Off fans on this. Uh, and they push it and they go to the line. But what works in that scenario is everyone's included, everyone's in on the joke. And when everybody's in on the joke, and it's not extremely offensive, it's not about someone and putting someone down, there is a difference. With Greg Wallace, it was like it was a power dynamic to help him look better. And the joke was usually made at the expense of other people, and generally women as well. So there is a little bit of a difference, but it's about being aware of that difference. And the rules are changing. And generally in comedy, the rules change every 10 to 15 years because there's new understanding come out about the way people feel. So do pop and chat for me. What are the things, because it sounds like a lot, doesn't it? What are the things perhaps that we have to consider that might make a difference in terms of banter? Just pop it in chat for me. And there is so much, and then it starts to sound like, gosh, should we just not say anything? And this is not where we want to go. Disabilities, absolutely. So we don't know because we can't always see them. Timing, language, protected characteristics, race, religion, sexuality is always out of bounds, by the way, is what I'd say. Cultural differences, yes, absolutely. What might be funny in one culture, lived experience, very much so, Christopher. Someone might be having a bad day. Absolutely, we do not know what's going on in that person's life. Anything under the equality act, absolutely, without a doubt. Sarcasm can be negative, you're absolutely right. How it's taken and how it's delivered. Reading the room, which is a hard thing to do. And by the way, I get it wrong sometimes. I absolutely still get it wrong sometimes. And I'll talk about what we do when we get it wrong. So we've got life experiences, past and current, interpersonal risks, so how I feel about the people in the room, who I am, belief systems and cultural barriers, loads and loads more stuff. Even being self-depreciating can be an issue if you're making fun of something about yourself that's a shared characteristic with others. Ariana, I think that's so true. And someone, by the way, who's Jewish, and often with my Jewish friends, we have a laugh and a joke, but we have a common understanding. And also we have a friendship where we know where the boundaries are with stuff. But if anybody else does that, it's not okay. It's not okay. So lots of things to consider, which, oh gosh, does that mean we don't say anything? No, absolutely not. So how do we use humour in a way where it's helpful and it doesn't become bullying? So the banter can become bullying very, very quickly when it's intended to insult, becomes overly regular and used to enforce a power dynamic, much like Greg Wallace was doing, and persistent as well. And if they've been asked to stop and it continues, as well as some other stuff. So these are some of the things that we absolutely need to consider. But let's not use humour. Look, it can be used when it's observations about life, like we just talked about in lockdown. If it's directed at yourself, with the caveat of understanding who else is in the room. Sharing memories and stories. Storytelling is one of the best things to get a laugh, something that's happened to you. It's got to be inclusive, all those things that we've talked about before, and be appropriate for the context, the situation, and timing. And the biggest thing to think about is, if you're not sure, don't say it. That's the most important thing. Jackie, someone told an Irish joke this morning. Okay, interesting. And was it inappropriate? Were they Irish? With so many things to consider, isn't there? Okay, so let's talk about this kind of wording. It's only banter. Do pop and chat for me. Have you ever had stuff said to you, and someone said, "Oh, it's only banter," and if so, is it okay for you to say that what it is here? So I've had things to me said, and when I was doing stand-up comedy, they would say to me, "Oh, you've got the girly spot." What that actually meant in comedy is there's a 10-minute free spot when you very first start comedy, and the 10-minute free spot is a gentler spot because they've had the warm-up act, and it's between the headline act or one of the good acts. And so there's an in-between bit, and it's a safe space because the audience is generally warmed up. But in comedy, it was known as the girly spot. And early on in my career, I'd be said, have you got the girly spot? And then quite often, when I got good and I was doing the later spots and the headline spots, people would come in and they'd look at me and they go, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" And I would say to them, "I'm doing the girly spot." And they'd say, "What, the 10 minutes?" And I go, "No, the headline act." Just so I was poking and building that up a bit differently. And when I challenge people, they go, "Oh, come on, you're in a comedy club." Um, but also, I've had people say to me, "You can make the tea," as a businesswoman when I walk into meeting rooms. Um, and I've had people say lots of different things about being Jewish as well. Um, I've actually one of my friends who's a very good friend of mine as well, who's gay, and she's had people say to her, "Oh, you're wasted as a lesbian." Oh, come on, it's only banter. When it's not, what you're saying is really offensive. Okay, I've got some really good ones in here. I've had, "Oh, are you on your period?" Oh, man, come on. Okay, yes, often inappropriate. Unfortunately, with age comes confidence. Good, and you'll tell them. Used to have people to refer to me as Barbie, Claire. Yeah, I've had that. Cheer up, love, it might never happen. Yeah, when serious stuff is going on. Lots of stuff around the snowflake generation. Interesting one. Blonde jokes, Tracy. Yeah. One of the things I'd really challenge you on is that we have to get a bit comfortable rethinking much of what we've thought to be true. And that might mean that you personally have been complicit in a conversation or jokes that have been offensive or produced inequality or inequity. And because times change, it's about us being really open to understanding some of this stuff and saying, okay, I might not understand it, but can you help me understand it? It's also about really being aware that we might say stuff sometimes and we might not think that it's offensive, but actually it's a microaggression. Really, really good question here from Coral, which is, has lockdown left us more sensitive to banter, leading us to take it the wrong way? I think it's a really interesting question, and I don't necessarily have all the answers. What I think has happened in lockdown is we have certainly had a lack of social connection for quite some time. And that lack of social connection for quite some time, especially with some people, um, has perhaps made them more sensitive to certain situations, or we have social media where we create this feedback loop about um, how we should be feeling about stuff rather than how we actually feel ourselves. So I think it's a really interesting one about um, how we navigate some of that and think differently around it, um, especially with what we're calling around those microaggressions and how we rethink some of those things as well. And it's important to think that it's not about not using humor and laughter anymore, but it is absolutely about being careful around it. And also, there are some people who stand in the way and want to be offended. And there is a difference, a very, very clear difference um, about using something that's offensive and people standing in the way of it. And I'll give you an example of this. So recently we were running an event and we were talking about the power of laughter. And one of the things about laughter and some of the research around it is that if you laugh, really, really good laughter every single day, it's really good for our well-being, and it produces K cells in our body. And K cells are immune cells, but they also are cells that help to fight fat. And so actually laughter can help us if we do lots of it, and you'd have to do lots of it, by the way, it's very extreme. Laughter can actually help us lose weight. Now, we had an email from somebody to say that that was fat shaming, and it was really an unhelpful thing to say. So we really looked at it and we thought about it. And actually, it's a piece of research that's been peer reviewed. And what I thought about, and I don't have all the answers, is if there was an expert on there who was a sports person, or an exercise guru up on stage talking about how exercise can help you lose weight as part of a healthy diet, would that have been the same? And when we spoke to the person, we had a really good conversation with them, which was a really open and honest conversation. The answer was no, we wouldn't be offended by that. So my thought was, well, why was laughter? So I do question sometimes about how we play the victim role and how we use conversations to steer that, rather than actually taking responsibility for sometimes how we feel. There's a brilliant book which Sandra has just mentioned called Outraged, Why Everyone is Shouting and No One is Talking. It's absolutely brilliant. Really, please do go out and get that book. It's one of the best books I've read for a really long time. Okay, so microaggressions. What are they? So they are little things that people say that are throwaway comments, but then can have a big impact. So, for example, it might be, I've got a friend who I say that to and they never complain, or I call everyone that. I thought you were everyone. For me, sometimes it's been things like, you're good at business because you're Jewish. Or it might be, you've done well for a dyslexic person. And those kind of little sayings and throwaways, they're what we call microaggressions, because what they do is they say something but in an overt way. Okay, let's talk about, how do we know when it's humour and how do we know when it's offence? Just pop and chat for me. How do we know when it's humour and how do we know when it's offence? Just talking about these things. It's a really fine line, isn't it? I love the way Neil's just put outraged. If people laugh or cry, oh, interesting one. People might laugh embarrassingly, so they might laugh along, but actually later when they've thought about it, or they might laugh because they're in a social situation, they don't know what else to do. Body language, yeah, by the person's reaction. Outraged is a book, by the way, brilliant one. How it makes you feel, yeah, how the other person, if you have to justify it's not humour, absolutely, that's a big one. If you have to justify that it's not humour. Okay, we've also got, sometimes we don't know. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So what needs to be considered? So what needs to be considered? Oh my goodness, it's a lot of stuff. So power dynamics, cultural sensitivity, social climate, history and shared experience, context, relationships, insider, outsider group dynamics, when humour's used to strengthen a bond in a negative way and make someone feel that like they're outside. Intent versus impact. So actually acknowledging impact over intent is a way of respecting others. And purpose and relevance. And what I mean by that is it should always have a positive purpose, but if it doesn't, it's about being prepared to listen and stop. So how do we challenge? And I'm aware we're quite short of time because we've had some really good conversations here. So I talk about when and how to challenge. So if we have been offended, and it's about, if we have offended somebody, being prepared to listen and have an open conversation, but also the individual taking responsibility for how they challenge in a way that helps people learn rather than switches people off. So I talk about the importance of directly challenging. And what I mean by that is to the person. So we don't create this victim mentality or drama triangle, which we talk about in these longer sessions. And if we challenge directly to the person, it's about, what is the time that we do that? Do we do it in the moment or do we do it afterwards? It depends on how that individual feels. but also it might be that we're happy to challenge that person directly. Now, age does have an impact on this, and confidence. So you might not feel confidence, which might be because you're younger than that person, in which case, please do, encourage people to go to somebody, to have somebody there to help them challenge that directly. And the reason why I say directly, it's so you can have that conversation about what it is, why it was that it was offensive. So you can help people learn. That's a really important part, rather than just saying that was offensive and walking off. Now, there is levels here. So if someone's used racism or sexism or overtly, then there is a thing of, do we then take it to HR? The decision of what is it that we do, and what I mean by that is decide what outcomes that you want. Do you want to engage the person in the conversation? Do you want to take it further? What is the decision? What are the outcomes that you want? And that's usually relevant to the situation that happened. And when you're having that conversation, it's about evidence and impact. This is what it meant. This is how I felt. This is the impact it's had. And then disarm. And what I mean by that is, someone, when you're talking to somebody, undoubtedly they will have their backs up, because they don't want to feel like they've offended or been racist or been sexist. And so it's about framing the conversation. This conversation might get a bit difficult for both of us, but I really want to have it. And I want to talk about this and why I want to talk about this. And I'm really happy to share my thoughts. And what I want to do is have this conversation together. So that framing can sometimes help disarm people. And it's about us being allies. So how do we challenge behaviours, even when individuals aren't there, by the challenging language, grouping, gossip, saying to people, that it's only joking, isn't it right? How do we challenge microaggressions and misconcepts, and really challenge some of these things, even when the person isn't in the room? How can we use laughter positively? So I often talk about, how do we talk to our teams about what's made you laugh this week, and share some of those stories and the things that have made them laugh, things that they're grateful for, or what have you enjoyed this week? So we create that positivity. And when we do that, we're more likely to explore laughter together. And one of the things that I'd also say, and that I've said before, is, if in doubt, don't say it. That is the most important thing, is, if in doubt, don't say it. So my challenge to you is, what will you do differently? Please pop it in chat for us. Is there something that you've taken away from this session? We've covered loads, so we will send out the recording. Just while you're popping in chat, what you will do differently, or what you've taken away. I am going to do a few shout outs for some goodie bags. So we have Jackie Smith and Chloe, because they've said it's their birthday. Now, I don't know if it's your birthday, but I am going to trust you here to say that it is your birthday. So you both get goodie bags. Also, Coral, you got your goodie bag straight away. Tracy with an IE. Joanne, you didn't have a last name, but you've got a goodie bag. Marcia and Sandra R, I think it was, you got the goodie bags. If you got a goodie bag, please do drop me an email, stephanie@laughology.co.uk. Please spend 2 minutes, do the QR code here, and give us some feedback about this session. Please do know that we run this session for longer, and it's on our website now. It's a new session. It's become so popular in workplaces. So please just do email us about it if you want more information. Please know that we run these regularly. And the next one is on the 20th of Jan with the brilliant Sarah Cregan, where we are talking about the power of words and the impact of Blue Monday. Is it really blue, or is it just something that's said? Please do fill in the QR code. There's a forms team there. You've all been brilliant. Have a lovely lunch. Merry Christmas. Is it too late to say Happy Hanukkah? And happy holidays if you just celebrate the holidays. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great afternoon. Tatty bye.